All right, ready to dive in. Today, we're tackling cannabinoid drug development.
Sounds exciting.
You've given us a ton of sources, papers, articles, even some history.
Yeah.
We're on a mission to figure out how to turn all this promising cannabinoid research
It's
into
like-
actual FDA-approved medications.
Right.
It's a tough path, like hacking through a scientific jungle.
Great analogy. It's definitely a complex area.
Yeah.
And a long journey. Starting way back
Oh, yeah.
in 1964 with the big discovery, A9-THC, the main psychoactive part of cannabis.
Goni and Mitchellum, right. That was huge. Really kicked off all the cannabinoid research that followed.
Absolutely. And paved the way for even bigger things. Like in the early 90s, discovering the endocannabinoid system itself.
Whoa, hold on. Before that,
Yeah.
we had no idea our bodies
Right.
made their own cannabinoids.
It's revolutionary. Totally changed how we think about these compounds and their potential, for medicine.
So not just the plant, but a whole system inside us. That's wild. And to understand it, we need to talk about these, what are they? The gatekeepers, the cannabinoid receptors, CB1 and CB2.
Exactly. They're like the locks, and the cannabinoids are the keys.
Okay, got it. Both CB1 and CB2.
Yeah, they're G-protein coupled receptors, or GPCRs.
Right, on the cell surface. So when a cannabinoid, like anandamide, right, blinds, it's like a signal goes off inside the cell.
Like flipping a switch.
Okay, this is where the science gets complicated.
A bit, yeah. It's like this, when a cannabinoid binds, say, to CB1, it changes the receptor's shape, a conformational change, it's called.
So it literally changes shape. That's wild.
It is, and that activates a G protein, which is stuck to the receptor. This G protein has a molecule called GDP attached to it.
GDP.
It's like an off switch.
Gotcha.
But when the receptor changes shape, the G protein swaps GDP for GTP, the on switch.
Interesting.
And then parts of the G protein subunits detach and interact with other things in the cell.
Wait, why is the detachment important? What happens after that?
It's a chain reaction. Those subunits mess with other molecules, enzymes. It's a whole cascade of events that affect the cell's behavior.
Okay, I'm following.
It gets complicated, though. We're talking changes in CAMP levels, that's a key messenger molecule. Then there's protein kinase A, or pKa, that gets activated or inhibited, and that enzyme's involved in tons of cellular processes.
Wow, so we're controlling messengers A and D enzymes. That's a lot of power, especially if you're making a drug to target these things.
Exactly, and that's one of the big challenges in cannabinoid drug development. We need to understand these pathways at a really deep level, like PhD level, to design drugs that work safely and effectively.
Right, but it's not just the science. What about the FDA? They must have a ton of rules for approving any new drug.
Absolutely. They have very high standards for safety and efficacy data. You have to prove a drug works, which is tough enough, but also that it's safe for people.
And hasn't the stigma around cannabis made things even harder, like slow down research and approvals?
Definitely. Decades of hindered research have left big gaps in our understanding. So we're catching up, building a scientific foundation while navigating a complex regulatory world. And it's still changing, too.
So scientific complexity, A&D, regulatory hurdles. Tough combo. But wait, our sources mentioned even more challenges, right? Practical ones.
Right. One big one is just the sheer variety of cannabis strains.
Oh, yeah.
They make hundreds of compounds, many still mysterious. Isolating and synthesizing specific cannabinoids for drug development, it's really hard. Like finding a specific grain of sand on a beach.
And then there's the whole psychoactive side effect thing. People associate cannabis with getting high. Big problem if you're trying to make a medicine.
Absolutely. CB1 activation, especially, is linked to those psychoactive effects, a major concern for drug developers. Imagine someone taking epilepsy medication and then having unwanted psychoactive effects. That's a huge problem.
So how do you design a drug that uses the good parts of cannabinoids but avoids those unwanted effects? Are there any clever solutions out there?
Well, that's where researchers get creative. One approach, making synthetic cannabinoid analogs.
Analogs?
Yeah, molecules designed to act like the natural cannabinoids, but with tweaks,
I see.
So they can be more specific, like a key that only fits one lock less chance of opening the wrong doors and causing those unwanted side effects.
So not from the plant, but made in the lab. Are there any examples of these actually being used?
Oh, yeah. Nabalone, for example, it's a synthetic THC analog used to treat nausea and vomiting from cancer chemo, especially helpful for patients on cisplatin. That stuff can cause really bad nausea.
Wow. So they're taking what they know about the plant's chemistry and making it even better, more targeted. What about other innovations? Anything else they're trying?
Absolutely. A lot of focus on drug delivery systems.
What's that about?
It's all about delivering the drug right where it's needed, minimizing those off-target effects and the risk of psychoactivity, of course.
So instead of the whole body, just the specific spot.
Exactly. It's like a GPS for your meds.
That's cool. How do they do that?
Yeah. Different ways. Transdermal patches, those release the drug slowly through the skin. And then there's nanoparticles, these tiny particles that can carry the drug right to specific cells.
Nanoparticles, that's wild. Like science fiction.
It is. And then there's computational modeling, virtual screening, using computer algorithms to analyze cannabinoid structures and predict how they'll interact with receptors.
So computers help you find the best candidates instead of testing thousands of compounds in the lab.
Exactly. Much faster drug discovery. And then machine learning takes it even further.
Machine learning. We're using AI for drug design now.
Think of it as a super-powered research assistant. It analyzes tons of data, learns patterns, helps us figure out those subtle links between structure and activity.
Wow. Like having a team of expert chemists working 24/7, tweaking and optimizing the drug.
It really is. And all this ties back to that idea we talked about, the template molecule.
Oh, yeah, right. Can you remind me?
It's like a blueprint for a molecule that can interact with cannabinoid receptors. Researchers use that blueprint, plus all the fancy computational tools, to create new molecules that fit the template but are even better. More potent, selective, safer.
So they're taking the basic design and then playing with it, seeing what works best.
Exactly. And that leads us to another exciting area, biased ligands.
Biased ligands, what are those?
Imagine a receptor that can trigger multiple signals in the cell. A biased ligand is like a key that only unlocks certain signals, not all of them.
So you're not just turning it on or off, you're choosing what it does.
Precisely. Really powerful for fine-tuning a drug's effects. Maximize the good, minimize the bad.
So like you could activate pain relief pathways, but not the ones that cause psychoactive effects.
That's the idea. It's early research, but it's got huge potential, and this highlights something else, the need for collaboration.
Oh yeah, it seems like this needs everyone working together. Scientists, companies, regulators, even patients.
You're absolutely right. We need open communication, data sharing, learning from each other. These challenges are too big for any one group to handle alone. But to really appreciate the scope, we need to step back and look at the potential uses of these therapies. Our sources mention a wide range of possibilities, really remarkable. Where should we start?
Well, we've already talked about nabalone for chemo-related nausea, but I'm interested in the neurological side. There's been a lot of buzz about CBD for epilepsy, right? Especially types that don't respond well to other meds.
Absolutely. Some promising research suggests CBD might help with seizures, but we need to be careful. There are early studies and anecdotal evidence, but we need bigger, more rigorous trials to figure out dosing, long-term effects, and how it interacts with other epilepsy drugs.
So not a sure thing, but worth exploring further. What about other brain stuff? I saw something about glioma's brain tumors.
Yeah. Early research hints that some cannabinoids might fight tumors, maybe even kill those glioma cells. But again, early days. We need way more data before we can think about real treatments.
Seems like this endocannabinoid system is involved in so much, even drug addiction, according to some of our sources.
That's right. It's a complex system involved in lots of bodily functions. Growing evidence that it plays a role in the brain's reward pathways, which is why it's linked to addiction. Researchers are looking into whether cannabinoids could actually help people overcome addiction.
Makes sense, if it's tied to pleasure and reward. What about other areas? Did our sources mention anything about inflammatory bowel disease, IBD?
They did. Evidence suggests that cannabinoids, CBD in particular, might reduce gut inflammation and help with IBD symptoms.
Wow, from brain tumors to gut inflammation, this is diverse.
It is, and that's not even everything. Some research shows cannabinoids could have anti-invasion activity against cholangiocarcinoma cells. That's a type of cancer affecting the bile ducts. At low concentrations, they seem to block the spread of these cells. At higher concentrations, they might even trigger apoptosis, basically, programmed cell death.
So many potential uses, so many different ways they work, really shows how complex this system is and how challenging it is for researchers.
Exactly. It's super exciting, but we have to be realistic. Huge potential, but we're still learning how to use these compounds safely and effectively.
A marathon, not a sprint. Speaking of journeys, what does all this mean for our listener? What are the big takeaways from this deep dive?
Well, the big one is this. The future of cannabinoid-based medicine is bright, but it's a long road. Complex science, regulations, practical challenges. We're just starting to understand this system. We need solid research, responsible drug development, and a clear understanding of both the benefits and the risks.
So excitement, yes, but with a good dose of caution and a commitment to good science.
Absolutely. And that brings up a final, thought-provoking question for our listener. Imagine a future where cannabinoid-based drugs are common, precisely targeted to treat all kinds of conditions. Easy to get without the stigma that's been around for so long.
Hard to imagine, given the history. But if we can overcome those hurdles, what a change.
Think about it. How would our relationship with these substances change? What ethical issues would pop up? What would it mean for healthcare and research?
Those are some big questions. But that's the cool thing about these deep dives. We're not just listening. We're really engaging with the information, challenging what we thought we knew. It's like we're seeing this future where medicine is totally personalized, right to the target, using compounds our bodies already get.
Exactly. And as we keep figuring out this endocannabinoid system, who knows what else we'll find? There's so much potential there. This whole field is moving so fast.
Yeah, it's incredible. It makes you think, what's next?
Yeah.
What if things we think are incurable now
Right.
could be treated with cannabinoids someday?
It's really amazing to think about. And that's why research, funding, collaboration, all of that is so important. We need the best people working together, to really unlock this potential.
It's a team effort, for sure. Not just about the science, but about people working together to learn and make progress.
Absolutely. And that leads to another point. We need to talk about this stuff in a responsible way. For years, there's been so much stigma and misinformation. It's held back research and created stereotypes.
Yeah, totally agree. We need to move past those old ideas and have honest conversations about the science, the benefits, and, the risks, too. We can't ignore those.
Education is key. If people understand the endocannabinoid system, they'll be more likely to support research, advocate for good policies, make good decisions for themselves.
It's about giving people knowledge, right? Not fear or hype.
Yeah.
And that's what we've tried to do in this deep dive.
Yeah, we've gone deep into the biochemistry, the challenges for researchers, the potential of all this. Quite a journey.
It feels like we've only just started, but we've already learned so much.
That's how it is with science, right? Every answer leads to more questions. And that's what we want our listener to take away, that curiosity, the drive to keep learning and exploring.
So to everyone listening, keep asking questions, keep learning, keep an open mind. Who knows what's coming next?
The journey's not over, and it's going to change medicine as we know it.
Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today. But the exploration continues.
Keep digging, find those nuggets of knowledge, and join us again next time for another deep dive. We'll be tackling a whole new topic,